what is the biggest business opportunity that young guys, 21 to 27, that they are missing out right now, and that if they could implement one or two things, they could start making money right away?
I think the biggest opportunity today, which is the opportunity that changed my life, is an opportunity in the financial space.
How would you get into that? Let's say someone just came out of college, you went to school, got a degree, whatever, and now you're doing your job and you're like, this is not enough, this is not gonna cut it. How can a young guy, and I'm asking just for myself,
Sure.
because when I went to school for filmmaking, and that's my passion and my love. And then I quickly realized that, shooting videos here and there, or trying to become a Spielberg, the chances are so difficult.
Yeah.
And I feel like everyone is on the internet looking at celebrities, multi-millionaire people, or this actor, that person. But usually those people don't even make that much money. The guys who actually make the big money, they're in the financial space, they're into real estate. So if you could pass on to a young guy a couple tips on how can they get started in that space, what does that look like?
Yeah, sure. There's people are trying to model, everybody out there. Everybody's looking for someone to model. There's a very famous, let's say, thing, which is the self-made millionaires. Everybody talks about, I'm a self-made millionaire, I'm a self-made millionaire. I think people ought to be looking at how to be system-made millionaires. In other words, system-made millionaires. Yes.
System-made millionaire.
Yeah, because
I love that.
When you are a system-made millionaire, systems basically rescue you from your lack of experience, right? Because it's systematized. If you look at major brands, major companies, they can bring somebody in, and even if they don't have experience in that space, it's the system that saves them. So when I heard that, it was clear to me I needed to find who had the results and who was following a system that I could follow. Because I wasn't really born with any special talent, but I knew I had the ability to learn skills, And I want to add a couple things because, it has to do with the questions you were asking right now. What should a young guy kind of be looking at? When I first came to this state, I was modeling a cousin of mine who was a pediatrician. He's a doctor. I wanted to be a doctor, right? But I had to come back because I actually went to high school in Mexico. And I came back, I wanted to go back to school, but I also wanted to continue to be independent because I had been out of my house since I was 14 years old. So being back at home, you have to be here at 8 p.m., still be treated like a teenager, I kind of wanted the independence. That's when I moved to Chicago. But to make a long story short, is that the modeling, quickly I realized that paying for college was just a little challenging. So I had to get a job. And inside of this job, a lady from Colombia, her name is Paola, who I would forever be grateful to. She says, you should be maybe looking into earning money based on value add instead of just trading your time for money. At my home, everybody was trading their time for money, looking for this job and see which one would pay them the highest hourly rate, right? I've never heard the concept of making money for value add. And she invited me to a meeting, which I was obviously skeptical. And it had to do with educating parents on how to prepare to fund their kids' college education in the Hispanic community. I learned a little presentation, and that space changed my life forever. Within a few months, I was earning more money than all my 6 siblings combined. It was a very generous industry, and it is also an industry that allows you to really provide a lot of value to the space. So that's why I believe so much in the financial industry. It's a $100 trillion industry. You could add retail and real estate combined do not match up how big the financial space is.
Wow. So when you're talking about getting into the financial system and doing that to add value and then make money based on that value add, what does that look like in the step 1, step 2, step 3? What is the actual...
Yeah, probably the easiest way of entry is going through the insurance space, to the insurance route. It's very easy to get your insurance license. Now, most people, when they hear insurance, they maybe, I assume, think about it's something that you sell, that people buy to protect their children, or the breadwinner in case of them passing away and not leaving the family without a backup or financial stability. But it's actually much bigger than that. The insurance space is, the insurance companies happen to be some of the biggest money managers in terms of retirement. People that are looking to not outlive their money. They trust their assets or their money into insurance companies. Really wealthy individuals who are trying to protect their money and income from taxation, they use insurance companies. So there's a lot of strategies and laws, we wouldn't have enough time to go into it, that allow for anybody who becomes a professional in that space to deliver such massive value that they can then get so handsomely compensated in return. But to be more direct in answering your question, is the easiest entry is getting your insurance license. I think it's a couple $100. And for most people who have...
So for a couple $100, I can start selling insurance to other people and start
exactly
that
right.
whole business.
Yeah, you can get your course to study between 30 and $100, and then maybe pay $100-200 to get your state license. It's
That's
the easiest
insane.
Entry.
There's no regulation, or I guess it's pretty simple.
Yeah, if you have high school, you pretty much are able to get into that.
Wow.
So you don't get into that space. Here's a funny story. I was going to school while I was already licensed selling. And I spoke to my counselor, who told me, if you continue in this university, you get your master's degree, you're going to make X amount of money. And then if you get your master's, you're going to make so much money. And if you get your doctorate, you're going to get so much money. And I think that was the one thing that made me to pause the education, because I was already making more money than whatever they describe being having a doctor or PhD was making. Yeah. So I'm like, wait a minute.
That's crazy.
My passion gravitated towards this other side. I wanted to be a doctor, but I gravitated in this space because I was being a financial doctor, and I developed a true passion for that.
So now for guys that are young, and just to be honest, the moment you tell me, oh, you could start selling insurance, I go to no way. I don't want to be that guy selling insurance. I immediately go to this stereotype of insurance peddlers and people trying to force you to so help me understand a little bit. And I guess for the guys watching the podcast, how can we actually look at the numbers and the actual amount of money that you're going to be making by actually bringing good value? You're not just I would assume you're not just selling some empty promise.
Absolutely. Well, here's a few examples, right? There was a point in my career where I was doing just the plain vanilla retirement planning. And most people sometimes don't know how to differentiate when you talk about retirement planning. They kind of put you in this box of, are you an investment advisor? I didn't want to label myself as an insurance agent, because I was more of a retirement planner and income planning specialist. And where I'm going with this is the following. If you think about people that have been working in this country, let's say 20, 30, 40 years, right? Once they've accumulated those $100,000 or $500,000 or several million, they also are accustomed to a certain lifestyle that they want to maintain. Therefore, moving from accumulation of assets or accumulation of money into a distribution state, they need to change the strategy. The biggest fear people have is running out of money and still having many more years to live. Mm-hmm. So who is the entity? What are the products that can ensure that people will not run out of money? The insurance company. So we move hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars from the banks and the mutual fund companies into annuities and retirement income planning. Obviously, it creates a lot of value for the customer, but it also pays us very handsomely in return. Now, here's another thing that's happening. Most people in this country are putting their money in things called IRAs, 401ks, ESOPs, right? These qualified accounts, without knowing that there is a tax freight train coming right at them in forms of obviously taxation, right? It's no secret. We're the most indebted nation. right? And there's so many entitlement programs the government's promised citizens. And so the likelihood of taxes doubling in the future is very real. Therefore, insurance has a lot of tax advantages that people can utilize. So what we do is we train our agents, per se, on those advanced strategies that when people listen to them, they no longer look at them just as an insurance agent, but they're actually strategies that help people protect their money from everything that erodes the value. Taxation is one of them, inflation is one of them, volatility. So insurance, like I said, I developed such a strong passion for what it can do to preserve wealth, to transfer wealth, and obviously to create income that people can't outlive. And when you look at it that way, you can see the value people can deliver. And that's why it's, if you look at, if you just go online, you look, what is the industry most likely to make people into a millionaire? That would be the financial industry. Some people think it's real estate, but it's actually not. It's the financial space. So.
Yeah. Now, talking about the financial industry, we just had the news like Silicon Valley Bank crash.
Yeah.
So many other banks defaulted right after. Everything is almost like in a state of turmoil, and like we don't know what the hell is going to happen like in the next 6 to 12 months. So can you touch a little bit on that? How can we understand what happened, and how can we protect ourselves looking at the whole landscape in the financial space?
Yeah, obviously, listen, the banks prior to COVID, right, they were required to maintain a 10% reserve on every deposit. And then,
which is insane, by the way.
Which is insane, right?
And most people have no idea that if you put $100 in the bank, they can take $90 and go play with it.
They'll go do the fractional banking.
I learned that today. I actually learned that. And
literally, like today?
Literally today. Like we were doing another interview with a very important person, and he was explaining that, and he said that it's even less than 10% now.
Well, now it is, because throughout the COVID period, the banks needed more liquidity. So the Fed lowered the reserve requirements to zero.
To zero?
It's not less than 10%, it's zero.
So I could literally put $100 in the bank.
Oh, there's no reserve requirements for banks since
crazy.
the law changed during the pandemic. So one of the reasons I would say you are much better and way safer in the insurance space is because insurance must maintain reserves equivalent to the guarantees made on the contracts. And when when an insurance company has, let's say, if for them to be considered solid, let's say, A plus in terms of their strength, let's say they have to have $1.50 or $1.10 or $1.03 for every dollar that they promise on their policies. If they go, let's say, to 97% or 97 cents for every dollar, that's when they are then considered insolvent, and therefore the state departments will go in there, chop them up, and have other insurance pick up those policies, or they would recapitalize them. That's in short. So no wonder during the 2008 recession, not a single insurance company actually went belly up, but over 200 banks did. Does that make sense?
So yeah, that's very interesting. Now, I would think that the insurance vehicle just doesn't have the liquidity that you would need. So for example, if you're running a business, you can't put all your assets into an insurance program because you need to hit payroll.
Absolutely. Nobody should put all their assets into any one thing. I mean, that diversification still continues to trump, right, to be the way to go. But if we're just kind of trying to compare in the world of protection, if you think about banks or government on insurance companies, right? Insurance companies are pretty solid because, hey, listen, they are experts in risk management. Now, I'm not saying that there hasn't been insurance company that has gone belly up. There are. But the way that the states require them, in other words, let me be a little bit more clear. If I wanted to come in to California as an insurance company, most likely I'd have to sign up to this deal where I have to somehow reinsure the other insurance companies. So all the insurance companies reinsure each other in a nutshell, and to summarize this thing. Therefore, when there's insurance companies that are insolvent in some way, are kind of recapitalized by the other insurance companies. So they back up each other in some way. That does not happen with banks.
Yeah. So now let me go back to the entrepreneurial side, and because I want to make sure that we deliver value for guys starting out, starting their business. What are a couple things that now, after being in business for so many years, you have met so many people, you have learned so much. If you had to start over again and start your business, what are a couple principles that you would focus on to try to get started?
Well, number one, I would believe in myself more from the beginning. I was a little insecure in the beginning, right? And so nowadays you can pretty much manifest and you can set goals, and as long as you back them up with aggressive activity, it becomes a reality. So I would be much more aggressive in terms of, I have this goal. You know, I mean, I've always been active, but I wasn't acting with a sense of urgency all the time, with aggressiveness, you know? And that's what I would do from the beginning. I would seek out mentors more intentionally, because many of the mentors in the beginning, I kind of stumble up on them. Like I was trying to become better in my craft as a financial strategist. And so I went to events, I went to conferences, and I stumbled up on a few people that I look up to. But I wasn't intentionally looking to mentorship. And so today, I'm like looking, like who's got the result that I want, and I try to get with them as quickly as I can. And that has speed up my growth significantly.
Yeah, I definitely like your concept of taking massive action and being a bit more aggressive with things. I think...
And also, let me just say, not get too fixated on learning everything. This is probably one of the biggest things, is that activity is what creates knowledge, not the other way around. In the beginning, I'm like, oh my God, I have to read Publication 59, I have to read this book and this book and this author and this other author, I have to know all this much, I have to be such a professional, right? And there is truth in a lot of that, because clients rely on your expertise and your knowledge, but is the activity that creates the knowledge. Like, there was a point where I had seminars with really wealthy individuals, even though I didn't know everything per se. The fact that I was now sitting in my office with a 10, 15, $20 million asset client, the conversation, they pushed me to grow because they were challenging me with things that I was not seeing with the $100,000 client, if that makes any sense.
Yes.
But it was the activity. It was not being afraid to do it and figuring it out afterwards. As long as somebody knew that I knew somebody that knew what I didn't know is all I needed to know.
Yeah, 100% with you. And in my case, I create content for, like, I'm a producer. I create content for a living. We are always creating, and trust me, we spend crazy amounts of time engineering content so you want to watch. And one of the biggest things that I could advise people is exactly that. Stop watching so many videos. Stop listening to so many audiobooks. Your next Audible book is not going to make your business work.
Correct.
That super cool businessy Instagram video that you're sharing on your story, even though it has a lot of great content, great value, by sharing that video or watching that interview, that is not going to get you where you need to be. You need to
100%.
Get the idea, believe in yourself, learn a couple basic things, and then just go and execute. And I'm afraid that we're creating a podcast right now for people to watch and learn.
Yeah.
And the thing that I would tell them is, like, don't even finish this. Like, go and work on your business. You probably don't need that much more education when you compare it to, you're probably lacking on activity.
I totally subscribe to that. Is acting on the little that you know will get you so much more result than trying to get more. And I think learning how to manage with the fact of not what you don't know, like how to manage that, is key. So I subscribe to that 100%. And it's a common denominator. Like the people that I see that are extremely successful, they all abide by that. Massive, aggressive, immediate, imperfect action. I love that. I kind of use that as my everyday sort of.
That's awesome. So I had another question, Mauricio. We are in a huge economic turmoil right now, and a huge part of that is inflation. Inflation is caused by we're printing more money, and we're printing more money because we need to pay the debt that we have. So it's like this vicious.
It's a catch-22.
Yeah, it's this vicious cycle.
Yeah.
So in your experience, what is the fastest way for people to get out of debt? Because maybe someone is watching this and they want to start that business, they want to go and do massive action, but like they have so much debt that they're paralyzed.
Yeah. The way I got out of debt is focus on learning a skill that would increase my value in the marketplace, and all that means is make more money, right? That helps. Obviously, it's not going to help much if you're going to then follow the same habits, right? More. Just because what we're seeing from the government, it doesn't matter how much money they print, they still are still continuing to increase the debt. So, but I would say look for ways to increase your income for sure. And the second thing, there's obviously a lot of different strategies on how to pay off debt, right? And whether you listening to people like Dave Ramsey, it's really just focusing, make it a priority, eliminate all that is actually counterproductive trying to make investments or putting money in other places when you have 20% interest credit cards. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, if I would want to describe a specific strategy. I would just say identify your debt, truly put our reflectors on you and see what kind of habits has gotten you there, and just look at your debt as probably the best investment you can make. If you're paying 15-20% credit cards, it's hard to get that rate of return anywhere else. So focus on that first. Look for ways to increase your income, definitely eliminate debt, and then make sure you're properly protected, right? Have emergency funds, and then look into investing and preparing for bigger goals like retirement, college fund, and stuff like that.
100%. So in your experience, Mauricio, for people coming to America, not knowing how the whole financial system works, how money works in this country, what would be your advice for those people coming in? I came from Cuba, communist country. I knew nothing about how the system worked. And throughout many years, I kind of learned, and now I have a base level understanding compared to you of how all of that works. So for someone like my brother just came to the country like a few months ago, what are a couple principles that maybe they're not thinking about with the right mindset and the right perspective about how capitalism works that you could share?
There's a little bias in what I'm going to say right now, right? Because the financial industry changed my life. Like I said, I've done almost nothing else for 23 years now. I got licensed when I was 19 years old. I'm 43. But here's one thing I would say is that if you're coming in this country, right, just get a job. But it's not what you do with your full time. It's what you do with your spare time. Most people, obviously, I understand. I used to work at the factory 12-hour days, and you're tired, right? You kind of want to go home and just chill, watch a movie, do something else. But it's just muscle through, understand that pain is progress, and it's what you do. Learn a new skill. I keep going back to that. Learn a new skill in that spare time that you have, and you'll find out, if you persistence, that the market will reward you for that value that you're bringing to the marketplace. Is that new skill you learn, that it's very likely that you begin to earn more money doing that than the job, right? But you have to really put in the work to do it. It's not gonna just come easy. And the easiest entry I have ever found is in the financial space. I mean, listen, there are 60 million, look, there's a lot of things I can say actually to that. There are 60 million Hispanics in this country. We all came almost looking for the same thing, which is the American dream. We came looking for financial freedom. Yes or no, right?
Yeah.
So if that's the case, why not focus on learning how money works too? And why not get into a space where there's so much need of people, right? Like so much need in terms of learning how money works. Like I said earlier, how to keep it, how to grow it. I think it's an industry that is waiting for hundreds of thousands of people with open arms, that they can actually create wealth by helping other people become wealthy.
Yeah. I think it's the story that we have heard for so many generations.
Yeah.
It's like you just get a good job and play it safe. And, you know, when you come from a very poor country where you had nothing and you come here, and I'm speaking for myself too, like for many years, I was happy going to like Goodwill to buy cheap clothes. And I was happy going to Walmart to buy the cheapest food because I felt that, you know, I had nothing in Cuba. Mm-hmm. And when I came here, as long as I have a bed, shower, hot meal, and I can have some okay, decent clothes, I'm already like so far ahead. I don't want to risk too much. I don't want to, you know, like I lived through that. And it was through listening to podcasts and interviews and reading books and Rich Dad Poor Dad and Think and Grow Rich. And like those things opened up my mind to see a different story and then realize that if you exchange your time at a job to do one task and you get paid this much, you're never going to get out of that. You're always going to be capped. And once I have that shift, then I could tell myself a different story. So I think that's what we're doing this to, how can we tell a different story, and especially with young men. I think it all starts with young men. When you have guys coming out of college that can open their eyes to see you can create value by going into business and actually providing things for people, right. I think that's going to change our entire future.
There's universal laws, I mean, that we've maybe heard over and over again, but you have to live through them. Like perseverance is omnipotent. It's like omnipotent. Or it's like, that's what it takes. I remember like sleeping on the floor. I went through ups and downs. You know, when you are in business, you have your ups and downs. When you're in sales, you have your ups and downs. As you learn how to market better, right? How to craft the message that brings the people to whom you can add the most value. I mean, it's a process. And I think the sooner you can embrace pain, the sooner that as you're going through the pain, at the same time, you're in the state of gratitude and you look at the things that you do have, and even that little progress you've made, if you learn to look at that, it gives you the fuel to continue. I know that now. I didn't do it in the beginning. I was in the state of survival, man. But I got hooked on, even though I had my ups and downs, I just saw there's such a great opportunity in the space I was in that kept me going. But nowadays, whenever I have a challenge, it's something I heard in Vegas at a big convention. I heard from a mentor. He says, I feel more proud than all my 13 yachts and my $50 million mansion. I feel more proud that I'm more aware of my emotions and that I've learned how to manage them better. That to me hit me like a ton of bricks, because a lot of things I've done in the past were visual decisions. I wasn't aware of the emotions. I was reacting to things, right? It's almost like when they say if you have a good attitude, things can be better, but if you change your paradigm, that's when you have real breakthroughs. So point is, to, like you were saying, people that are looking for their way to success is be aware of your emotions, get control. It's probably one of the toughest things to do, right? And embrace pain, because I think that progress only comes about when you actually learn how to overcome. And when you are overcoming, it means that you are in an uncomfortable situation, going through pain. But just learn to embrace that. And it's going to serve you very well, because it'll give you the fuel to persevere until you achieve.
So guys, thank you so much for watching this episode. If you like it, send it to a friend. And I really love for you to check out this other episode with Peter Esteves. We're going to cover a lot of the same topics, and I think you're going to love it.